We are live. Hello. Welcome to What's Wrong with Richard Rushfield, where we chat every day about, almost every day, lots of days, about what's happening in our world with the most interesting and thoughtful people in our world to give us some insight to just what the heck is going on in this place. And today we are talking about the big topic of the year, maybe the big topic of the decade. It's the Warner's Paramount merger, and from that, the state of film and the independent film community, which is, I really see this merger as just like a beginning front in a much larger thing, and we're going to talk about all that with our guests. They come to us from the Future Film Coalition, which is they'll tell us all about it, but is really doing some very important work in bringing together the independent film community and to advocate and plan for what should be a vital ecosystem. It's a very important organization, and we are delighted to have here the executive director, Jack Deluca. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Jack.
Thanks so much for having us. This has been a long-awaited lunch meeting for us. So
It had, and it will be hopefully the first of many. Maybe it'll come every day. We'll see. We also have with us an actual real life filmmaker, one of the people who we're talking about and all that. We have a documentarian and activist in the Future Film Coalition in this space, Marjan Safiana. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Richard. I didn't know that we were having lunch. I didn't get the menu.
The DoorDash is on the way, so okay. Just make sure you.
What did they say? If you're not on the you're on the menu. Maybe we're on your menu.
Exactly. So, I just want to give some credit where it's due. First of all, we had some big news with the Warner's Paramount merger this week that's being held back for at least a year, and sort of everybody's coming around. And doesn't mean it's dead, but it means that it's up in the air right now. Which so I first met Jackson on a panel back in Sundance in January. This was when there were still three bidders for Warner Brothers up in the air, and she told us she had started the Block the Merger campaign, and I almost fell out of my chair because I'd been writing about this, and I had gotten nothing but everyone telling me this can't be stopped. It has to happen. Why are you talking about it? Everybody had their favorite. What would be the best home for Warner Brothers, and really just alone in the entire world. Jackson and the Future Film Coalition were taking a stand against this, and it was everything grew out from what you guys did there. So how are you feeling this week? When I think if everyone isn't totally with us, nobody is saying anymore, oh, there's no point in even trying to stop it. It's inevitable. Why do you? Which frankly, I'd say is kind of I don't know if it's half the battle for me, but maybe a quarter of the battle. That even if this goes through and ultimately happens, that there have been some sort of process and some sort of public feedback and input to it before it happens, and that we establish the precedent that these things don't just happen on the basis of one person. And okay, I've talked enough. Tell me how you're feeling about the news this week. And
I mean, I think we're feeling pretty good. And Marjan and I were just at the International Documentary Association's Getting Real conference last week. Last week it feels like last year already. We were talking about kind of the evolution of how this whole entire campaign started. And so Future Film Coalition and International Documentary Association and Art House Convergence, we were really doing these town halls at the beginning. And it's just kind of crazy to think about how this one website has made a difference in terms of how we've been able to draw this larger coalition around us, which really helped it take off because it did feel very overwhelming in January. Mars, do you want to talk a little bit about that evolution and kind of where we are now and how we're feeling? Because I have some thoughts on where it's going.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, I think that a lot of folks in the dot community, we're just naturally kind of organizers and obstacle removers because we have to be in order to get anything done. And, we'd launch impact campaigns. Like, it's not out of ordinary for us to build something out of nothing and then draw people to it. So IDA had hosted a town hall in December, early December, and it was part of the IDA Awards event as well. And we were really talking about it. And then I think it was late December that Jax and I were on the phone also with Kirby Dick, filmmaker Kirby Dick. And we were just talking, like, wouldn't it be great if we had like one place where we could put the information? And I was like, well, why don't we go see? And so then I went to my favorite URL site and I typed in block the merger, not imagining under any circumstances that such words would be available for purchase. And they were. So then, and then Jax figured out how to code. And honestly, within a day, there was a website, right? Having a central place has been really important, and just making a really clear statement. It's a very simple and clear position of, a statement of our position. This thing should be blocked. And then, since then, the coalition has grown tremendously, and there's a lot of other partners who are part of the work, and it's really cross-disciplinary. Sometimes I joke that if you live up to filmmakers, they'll be discussing the same issues a decade or two after they started discussing those issues, not necessarily having resolved anything. But if you sprinkle in some folks from other fields and other energies and disciplines, now you start cooking with gas. So I think we feel really good, especially a couple of things. One, that we've changed the narrative, right? It's not a done deal. It wasn't a done deal from the beginning. Two, that we've built something that's a really strong organizing base of people with shared visions, and that can be applied to this and many other things. And I think that's really powerful. And three, that we now have time because of Paramount's decision to, to just sort of fast forward straight to the trial and not, obviously, my opinion is they would have had a loss on the injunction, and the loss doesn't look good. And so that gives us time now to be really thoughtful about how we continue to grow and build the movement. I think people have been scared, and now they will be less scared to come forward.
I hope less scared. And well, just building on that, actually, one thing I wanted to mention is one thing that this whole campaign has really demonstrated, regardless of how this lawsuit actually ends up next year, it's demonstrated that we have been able to come together across these different fields, as Marjan has mentioned, like these people who have been working around antitrust issues in different sectors. I think it's really exciting for them to finally have the people in this industry stepping forward and actually providing information and being participatory and actually sharing how this industry works. Because while this has demonstrated that there's structural issues that are facing the independent film field and Hollywood, we're all experiencing it in different ways. It's manifested in different ways. If you work in documentary or scripted work, or if you work by doing commissioned work. And so I think that was the other big win for us so far, is just being able to help explain and get people in our field talking about this in a very vocal way that aligns with the ways that the people who do the enforcement and the regulation side. Because I think this is the opening up of this broader issue, because obviously we have people part of Future Film Coalition that do deals with Paramount or Warner Brothers or Netflix. So it's really not, the point of Future Film Coalition is not to shut down big Hollywood or big media. It really is about how do we gain leverage again and help build that collective power and shape strategies to ensure that the US independent filmmaking field, that means both documentary and scripted, can flourish alongside that broader entertainment industry. So this is like one small win for something that I think can point to that larger picture. So this campaign is definitely for us more than about one transaction.
Yeah, I mean, all these issues that we're talking about with it and others have all been present before this merger ever came up, and they will all continue whatever happens with this one. What I want to take a step back, just give you a chance to explain what the Future Film Coalition is and what you guys do for people who aren't familiar with it.
Sure. So the way that Future Film Coalition came about is we have a founding board made up of amazing people from the field. We got John Reese, Carrie Putnam, Brian Newman, Jeff Kasuma-Hinty, Barbara Twist, Abby Sun. So it's a broad group of people who are working in the field. And what they've all come together and gathered a coalition around is realizing the marketplace has fundamentally changed. And we also lack visibility with policymakers. And most of the policymakers don't know that we exist as a field, as an independent film field sector. And so when policymakers and regulators and other people who are working in this, who don't work in the field but are making decisions about the field, when I think of the film industry, they're picturing Hollywood or Netflix or Paramount, the big ones. But 92% of the 122,000 businesses in the film and media industry employ fewer than 10 people. So for us, that really is indicative of like, we need to do more to talk about who the small businesses are in the film and media supply chain. And the independent film ecosystem is comprised of small businesses, even ones that are under, I think it's the threshold is $40 million in revenue and under. That's a small business in this industry. So we did not have a national service organization coordinating across these various industry styles, from people working in film or working in the distribution side or the exhibition side. And so like, who was lobbying for us, or who was actually advocating for us, or developing those relationships with policymakers to let them know like what is happening in our field and what has fundamentally changed, because that part of the relationship building is so key, because some of these larger entities, they have those relationships on the Hill. Well, they're putting an awful lot of money into it, but we are putting a very minimal amount of dollars into this. But our goal really is to make sure that our field, our independent film field, has a seat at the table and has a place to amplify their voices, and something that brings together our fragmented networks and all of these siloed data that we have across independent film, to start bringing that together underneath one umbrella. So for anyone who hasn't joined Future Film Coalition and is really passionate about independent film and thinking about how we kind of fortify that ecosystem, you can join online right now. It's just go to our website, futurefilmcoalition.org, and you can join as an individual. You can also join as an organization or a company affiliate. And Marjan is one of our branch organizers. And Marj, do you want to talk a bit about your experience with FFC and what kind of drew you?
Yes, please.
That?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been trying to fix the ruins of our industry for a really long time. I do an enormous amount of service trying to build the field, not from a not filmmaker perspective, but from a filmmaker perspective, because sometimes we have folks come and think that they know what filmmakers need. That's not actually what we need. But so I've been doing that for decades, and I'm really excited that there's sort of an organization with an intention to do advocacy work and that connects across the field, because I believe in collective action and I believe in collective power. So that's what drew me. And you know, it's relatively new, right? Like if in terms of the doors being open for members to come in, it's quite new.
Within a few months, yep.
And so I think there's also really, you know, this campaign sort of blew up and it's become like a really big thing, and it's a bit like building the plane as you're flying it. And I think that also there's work still to be done, right, inside the coalition to get us all in the habit of showing up for each other, speaking up for each other, walking forward together, right? Coalition building. It's something we need to be doing across everything. Like, we live in a country right now where we need people to be in strong coalitions and understanding the power of collective action. And so I'm excited to see that starting to happen in our field, which has always prided itself on independence. And I think that's really important. But independence sometimes is at loggerheads with interdependence. And in fact, we are interdependent in a system. And so a lot of us have been talking about that for a long time. And I think it's like, how do we keep our independence, but also lean into our interdependence? And I think that's the work that Future Film is trying to do.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, if you go to Sundance, for instance, there are so many people doing these businesses that you didn't know such things existed. I mean, there's the producers, there's the small theater owners, there's people that have distribution services, there's people that marketing things. You can't there. You meet thousands of people doing all kinds of different things in this ecosystem, but as much so much of the energy of it seems to just get lost because there's no umbrella over it. So you find like practically, I say like there, all the pieces are there for independent films to regularly be doing huge business and reaching huge audiences, but you've got thanks to the internet and all this, you've got marketing, you've got distribution, all these things that you don't need 50,000 person companies to support, that a company of 3 people could do, but the services, but they're not connecting, and the messages about what they need are not connecting. So at the end of at the end of at the end of Sundance every year, the big takeaways aren't like we need a new system for marketing or new paradigm for how they could. The message is Netflix bought this for $20 million, huge sale for it, like which is not helpful to the independent film community. So
totally.
That's actually a really good point. I haven't thought about it like that because, we have very few things. Like, imagine if at the end of Sundance, the takeaway was, wow, the value of U.S. independent film production has yielded X, Y, and Z. Yeah. These purchases has brought this to it. And it is funny, there are things like the Innovation Streaming Alliance that exist, and they're doing like lobbying work around how great the streaming economy is. And it's all of these big streamers doing this one initiative talking about how great all these innovations in streaming are great for consumers and great for creators. So why aren't we working as a coalition to do the same thing? And so I think that's kind of the goal, is like, how do we fill that gap of making our messaging across all of our various networks as strong as this other messaging that people are just funneling money into, that we are up against something much larger.
And that the health of the industry isn't about whether Amazon has paid 8 figures for a movie. That's that the health comes from other. That's wonderful when it happens, and God bless to the people who get it. But that that every year that'll be 3 movies that get that, and we want an ecosystem of hundreds of movies every year.
And we want a thriving grassroots, right? We want channels of entry for filmmakers who are learning. It's it's an activity that you got to do a bunch until you get good at it, right? And an open independent marketplace allows and invites, really encourages. I mean, I grew up in a time where like going to the video store and getting my armful of independent films and coming home for the weekend and locking myself in my room, that was like my joy, right? And that era, which was whatever, like sometime in the 90s, like spurred an entire generation of us to come in and do this work. And one of the threats with these kind of giant mega corporation consolidation tech companies, the whole thing of it all is that we move towards sort of a homogenized kind of widget based future, and also big budget tentpole. You see the stuff that's in this antitrust case, tentpole, big budget stars, right? Like that there's no space in there for someone who's just graduating from film school, or someone who's been making content for a long time on their phone and they want to level up to make something more robust. So unless those tree tops, those big budget deals, they're going to die when the next generation hasn't found a way in. Right. And so it's just really important to make sure that we clean up so that there's a path behind us for the rest of them,
Yeah. And the casino can't just be about, thousands of people come in and 3 of them win giant jackpots and everyone else loses everything. Got to be a reasonable
number of people.
Business, Richard. Yes. Exactly.
Similar in music right now too. There's a very similar issue because I grew up in the time where a lot of the radio stations were consolidating, and there was that big move around supporting your local musicians. And this is very much a similar thing because we knew, at that time it was around just the dominant music production companies dominating the airwaves, right? And we know that those aren't the only bands that exist, but for a good percentage of people who consume media, they're only getting a tiny bit of that because of the discoverability component, which all relates to the impact on the independent film field and its accessibility to reach broad audiences.
So let me tell you getting back to the news of the week with the merger. Let me tell you my fears about I'm very excited about what's happened and how this has moved forward and how this has really become a kind of mainstream position that to stop it from being just a tiny little fringe movement when you guys started. But with success brings new challenges. So here's my two fears, and you can either tell me I'm right or calm me down and dissuade me of these. The first of them is that we haven't won yet. We haven't won anything yet. There's a procedural move that is good news for the moment, but that is not don't that people are confusing that with a ultimate victory.
A win, right?
Far from
exactly.
it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We have a
We
long way.
just entered the arena together.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you look at the legal team that Paramount has arrayed, the forces against us, how the state attorney generals are very new at this. This is not going to be a cakewalk to victory here, and we are so. To prepare people for this is a long fight and victory is far from certain. And the second part of it is the good thing for this cause is that this merger is bad for lots of reasons, and we have our reasons for thinking it's bad, but other people have other reasons. And I think for a lot of there are a lot of people who are sort of got involved because of the Trump of it, which is which for me that is a very bad thing, and how this all came about and what promises were made and what happens with the consolidation of media is where the consolidation of the news media is very bad. But for me, at the bottom of this merger is a process, is a step in a process that started in the early 1990s when they took apart the FinCEN rules, and consolidation was written into the entire framework since then. And if whatever happens with this, that process will continue, and that I'm worried that the Trump focus in this means that if we win this and then some other company buys it that doesn't have the Trump thing, everybody will say, "Oh yeah, big victory." And for me, that won't be a victory. That'll be great that we stop Trump. I'm all for that, but the bigger issue. So keeping all that in the center, and for me, this means like making this an opportunity to educate people about FinCEN and why we need that. So tell me.
100%. No, not wrong. And I think yes, one, you've probably noticed we've updated the website. We have a case tracker on there, and we kind of show like what happens next. And we also started putting in different resources, so people can even go back to the early town halls or look at early statements, because then that's kind of before things really got even more politicized. Because we at Future Film Coalition and IBA, we're not running a political campaign. This really is an educational initiative, and our goal is really to help our field better understand these structural forces that shape independent film, so that way creators and other people who are part of this ecosystem can actually participate more effectively in these public conversations, so that way it doesn't get dragged down by the political dynamics. Because at the end of the day, antitrust enforcement and regulation is a really important part of thinking about what happens next for this field. So this goes beyond this one transaction, and going back to even like when DOJ and FTC redid their merger guidelines there's a whole section around buyer side competition and monopsony, which is really critical to this case. And one of the things that I think is a huge win right now is I think people are starting to learn about this word monopsony. And that's really around buyer power and having that recognized as an antitrust harm rather than just a labor market issue. And this is, something that was really relevant for the Penguin Random House and Simon and Schuster case. And we as a field need to be cognizant of the fact that if you're an independent filmmaker and you're selling your work, you have to sell that to a distributor, and that distributor also has to be able to sell the license to places that will buy that. And so what happens when you don't have buyers that are buying those independent films, it actually creates an issue where no one's going to finance a film that's not going to get sold. So this independent film circle, the like chicken and egg thing of like, how do we fix the financing if we can't fix the buyer side? And so I think really honing in on that buyer side component will be helpful, because what we're really talking about in this particular transaction is the way that we have an illusion of a multitude of buyers for independent film, but that's actually not the reality. And so we just don't have a lot of data and proof that shows that in the numbers. But I do feel like there's a larger case that could come down the pipeline for this, as long as like we as a field understand how to talk about and categorize our experiences and identify the patterns of harm from media consolidation in general. That was a long answer, but
No, that was very good. And one of the things that in talking with you guys that really strikes me is just the power and the need for data, and how difficult and expensive that is to pull together. That the when the Paramount case goes to court, they will have all kinds of studies and all kinds of data and everything to show it. And putting those together are really time consuming and expensive. And we sort of have this illusion that somewhere there's a grad student working on a PhD who's just put all that together for us, so you don't have to worry about it. But that requires much more of the time. That requires organizations to build that. And like just knowing what the shape of the independent world is
and it's go far beyond this case, right? Because there's all sorts of things that we can advocate for better when we can quantify them, because that's just the world we live in. So I think gathering that data is very important. I think in terms of this case, just to not mislead anyone and be super clear, there are 3 lanes that the AGs have brought, and they have brought those 3 lanes because they feel very confident that they can win on those 3 lanes. And if they win and the merger is blocked, then the independents are taken care of, and the doc folks are taken care of, and the journalists are taken care of, right? All the folks who have all the concerns. So I think that's why the case is narrow in terms of the AG's approach. And I think it's because they have the data that they feel super confident about. So I know at the beginning, myself included, a couple of us were like, oh, we didn't make it into the case. But I think that's a strategic and tactical choice on behalf of the AGs, because they understand that the scope of this thing is enormous. And it's not just like 2 studios buying each other. It's all the TV channels. It's all right. And then there's like other connections to like algorithm control. It's an enormous situation, and you can't put all that into a winnable antitrust case. And so they decided to go, I think, brilliantly into a very narrow lane where they feel very confident. Bonta keeps telling us that he's won 80% of his cases, right? And so with the goal that if that win comes, then it deals with all the other issues as well. So that's the one thing I want to say too. People like to call everything political, and everything has become political in this country, but it's not political because it's like anti-Trump, like antitrust enforcement and protecting the ability for small businesses and entrepreneurs and the economy to thrive is age-old and bipartisan. It's some new like mumbo jumbo trick that they're trying to play on us. They're trying to say that everything is Trump derangement syndrome. That's because they have their own like narcissistic derangement syndrome, right? And we certainly, folks at IDA and Future Film, we were opposed when it was Netflix as well. We are opposed to further consolidation in this field. And we are not some special snowflakes here. All these fields, like everything that we touch, the grocery food, the food that you buy at the grocery store, the drug that you get at the pharmacy, the doctors that you are able to visit, all the entirety of this nation and her resources are being monopolized and
Yeah.
being put into these mega corporations. And so when we say collective action, it's not just for us in the film industry. It's also so that my dad can get the prescription benefit that he needs, right?
Yes.
And that like my, friend who lives in rural America can get to see a doctor, and that there aren't food deserts because people think, well, that's not a place we can make a bunch of money. We're not going to put our grocery stores there, right? So I think the kind of the real opportunity for us is to show that we too are people. We're not some
Yep.
like universe of Hollywood elites.
Yes.
We're working folk, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with the farmers and the,
Yes.
and that together we're going to just say like, no, like we get that you're all rich and you've made yourselves rich and knock yourselves out, but that doesn't mean you own us and everything that we have, right? And so I think the more we can get our own heads out of our tiny bubbles and understand we're part of a bigger thing here, and a lot of it is about controlling people, what they see, what they think, right? Because that algorithm, I come from Iran. I'll put it in the frame of Iran, if I may, just for a second, Jax.
Sure.
That's how they control people, right? They control people and how they think, and that allows the state to accrue power to itself and enrichment to itself. And I don't mean that in a Trumpy way. I mean that in a like, we got to be paying attention now. We've got to be fighting for these things because we're living in a different time. So I think for me, certainly this case would be really powerful, and 100% certainly. But after this one, another one's going to come along, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to learn how to fight together, because we're going to have many fights to engage in together.
And part of this for me is the next murders are lined up on the runway after this. I don't know what I don't know what they are, but they're ready to go. And if this had been allowed to just sail through in 2 weeks, it would be green light for everything would be swallowed up into. So the more we can make this say like this will be scrutinized. You will
Right.
you don't upset our entire industry like this without some sort of public reaction to that. Jax, please.
So in 2018, there were these competition and consumer protection hearings for the 21st century that were happening through the FTC. They did all these public hearings. They had all these openings for comments, and it was around platform dominance, algorithmic bias, the changes of just various industries due to digital disruption. And I will say in 2018, there was not any representation from the film field that I know of. And so now I'm like, wow, what would happen if now we can harness what we know and get engaged in these cross-sector conversations that Marjan's talking about, because that like cross-industry power is really, I think, what's going to move the dial. And I will say, like, for us at Future Film Coalition, we were introduced to the Athena Coalition early on. That's more like they're pushing against Amazon and data centers and AI. And they're the ones who really introduced us personally to the people who work at American Economic Liberties Project, which to me felt so far away that we would ever be partners with them, because it just felt so out of our league, because we come from the film field. We're not economists, or we're not working at the labor organizing side, but that's not an excuse anymore. We should have been doing this all along. And this is really right now just that moment where anyone who works at a community media center or a nonprofit organization, or even something that's like a nonprofit independent outlet, regional storytelling organizations, I think these are all very relevant to this discussion, even though something like the Warner Brother Paramount merger feels so distant from your reality. It's actually all of these micro things that if we keep shutting off, then we're just going to keep allowing these things to be greenlit. So I am just so impressed by people in the field who have been willing to come forward, because I know for some of them, their livelihoods been at risk by doing so. But I think right now, if we all stand together across all the different labor markets, and Marjan and I were talking about how when we first launched the website, we were really looking at the Stop the Grocery Merger.com. The Stop the Grocery Merger was the Albertson and Kroger supermarket merger, which would have been one of the largest ones ever. And people in the food supply chain stopped that. And people who were coming forward and sharing their testimonials and stories. But, it wasn't just the website that changed that. It obviously was the $30 million that Washington State AG's office had to put into bringing on antitrust legal support to file and move through this case. But the other thing we've learned is it's just prohibitively expensive for our public defenders to do this work. And that in itself should just speak volumes about the imbalance of how things are unfolding right now.
Yeah,
we should be angrier.
Well, I mean, and this is where the Trump focus is certainly correct. I mean, not to have the oversight boards engaging in the regular scrutiny that
which is why the AGs had to act, because the DOJ rubber stamped
Yeah.
it, and the investigators
They
of
were
the
trying.
DOJ were surprised and wanted to investigate it. So, we're in this part of the game we're all playing in this country right now, is we are having to expend a lot of energy to keep patching the cracks where the system ought to be working. The system of the federal government ought to be working for us, and it isn't. And it's also a way of tiring people out. So I heard one of our colleagues say the other day, and it's been ringing in my ears. She said that the power of money is not greater than the power of many, right? And I think we should put it on a T-shirt and sell it in the Future Film merch store, where you can buy your Block the Merger buttons if you'd like to. And B, I think we should really wake up every morning and remember that, right? Remember that we are just as entitled to the benefits of living here and being free to do our thing here as anyone else. And a lot of stuff has been raised about this campaign. Oh, they're this, they're that, they're being funded by Netflix. It's being said by people who don't have people who would just show up and fight for something because they believe in it, not because they're getting rich from it. No. And we are people who will show up and fight because we believe in it. Right? We firmly and deeply believe in it, and we have passion. So maybe they don't understand that, but I suggest that they learn quickly, because I think there are a lot of us, and I think we're learning how to move in formation in a much more effective way.
Let me just share. The great Ted Hope is in our chat here. And made some comments. I just want to add to the record here and give you a chance to respond, even though we've gone far over the time I promised to let you go by. Ted wrote, "It's not just a lack of buyers. We have over 100 theatrical distributors in the USA, but they don't buy because they can't sell to pay one. We only have 3 buyers there: Amazon, Disney, Hulu, and Netflix. Apple only buys a little, so very little, so they don't count. We need regulations to allow independents to access the streaming platform. How can that get done so that third-party suppliers can be assured they can have their films seen by audiences? What we call the streamers are really utilities now. And although we need to stop media consolidation, how can we have to get access to these utilities? How can that get done?"
Yeah. You know what's crazy? So on the Innovation Streaming Alliance's website, they talk about how they do not feel like they have the they're explaining how they do not use public rights of way and how they don't have a public obligation. So I think it's really up to us to push back and talk about that and really remind people about what public interest obligations meant in the 50s and 60s, when we first were kind of started to do this regulation across cable and development of public educational television, which also didn't need to mean just documentary film. It could have been more artist, scripted narrative, things like that. But there are all these different things that have happened over the decades that kind of changed the way we thought about what public interest obligations were for public media or public access. But I think right now is the time that we could be developing that larger argument and pushing back against some of the language and framing that already exists. And I firmly believe that these streamers should have stronger public interest obligations. And that is core media policy for some of these new communications pathways. So whoever wants to join that working group, let's start it. Ed.
Give them the website and all the information that everybody needs to sign up and get involved right now.
Great.
So you can go to blockthemerger.com for Block the Merger specific stuff. You can go to futurefilmcoalition.org to join or to learn more about the other projects that they are working on. And I just finished typing a comment in the chat. You know, we've been everything has been focused on impressing upon the AGs how much we needed them to act. Now they have done so, and now we've been given this extra piece of time. So we are now currently in the kind of in the luxurious position of being actually maybe able to sleep every now and then and breathe and plan out thoughtfully how this expands and grows. Because I think for those of us who think that this is a bad idea, it's going to be incumbent on us to keep this topic alive, right? And to grow our base. And so you'll be seeing some new stuff coming from us and new ways to get involved from the Block the Merger side.
Yeah. And I think what's really important here is that we realize that what happened last week was and what's happening with this merger is the first battle in a larger war that even if this whole battle with on this merger gets won, there's a bigger war to be won about consolidation and about opening up the industry. And I'll start with FinCEN again. But that war is just one front in a kind of geopolitical battle against the consolidation of our entire economy into this one place. So it's
almost the topic of a great franchise, the little people against, you know, it's like Harry Potter, but for grown-ups or something.
But you can feel the tide turning because of organizations, because of people like you that are starting to talk about what's happening here and fight back. And and that fight has to start on our own front. It has to start with what
we need to actually get into that space and be loud, because what Marj and I have realized is, I mean, we have so many amazing partners in this Block the Merger coalition, but the Future Film Coalition and IDA, we're one of the few that are really specifically dealing with people who work in the independent film sector or are operating independently within this ecosystem. So I think that's also really important for us to remember, and for anyone who works in that ecosystem, that it's really up to you to be stepping forward and participating in these conversations. Because when we are kind of shaping our talking points and other things, we need to be hearing input from the people who work in the field. And for Future Film Coalition, we have 6 branches. We have filmmakers, artist support, distribution and sales agents, marketing, communications, and then members at large. It's a wide variety of people, but across the different branches, they're all affected in different ways by different issues, and especially with media consolidation. It's very different for filmmakers, a very different experience for a filmmaker than someone who's an independent distributor. And so we need all of that information, and we need people to be stepping forward as much as they feel comfortable doing, so that way we have the data. And here's where unions and guilds have a step up over something like FFC right now is, and also their colleagues, their colleagues, part of the coalition, but they have data. They have longitudinal data that actually can track who's part of WGA or who's part of IATSE. So we need at Future Film Coalition people to be participating and helping us shape the data sets of how we represent ourselves as independent people working independently in the film and media sector, because that will be a game changer for us. And we are working on some data collection. We're still looking to raise that money. So if there's any kind people out there who really want to help make a difference in how we start developing baseline data sets, please send us an email. We'd love to be in touch. We were looking for partners for that data collection survey. It's an economic impact survey for independent film. It's something we sorely need. But there's a moment right now where it's easy to say that these things aren't built for us or these systems don't work for us. But we have no excuse if we're not stepping forward and asking for what we need to be done differently in order for us to maintain our livelihood. And if the voices aren't there, then it's very hard for people to make those changes. And I know that from working in government, if you don't have enough pressure from the outside, then it's really hard to justify on the inside why those changes are necessary. So we do need some good, strong partners on the insides of some of these larger industry organizations as well to just work alongside of us. We see this as relationship building and field building.
And this is where it all starts, and this is where the tide turns. And thank you. I've kept you way beyond where I promised, but this is just the first. I hope you'll both come back. You should come. We should do this every week or something. Because
Just do it, Richard.
This battle
We should
is
do
going
a
to
check-in.
continue.
Yeah.
Figure
Yeah.
it out. Thanks
So
for
let-
having us. It's,
Thank you
you've
so
also
much.
been a really loud and important voice
Yes.
here, Richard, from the
Well-
beginning, unwavering. And you reach a lot of people, and you've really helped folks figure out why this isn't just something that has nothing to do with them, but in fact, it has everything to do with them.
Well,
So thank you.
I'm
Should have said
honored
that
and
at the beginning, right? Yeah. Richard, your journalism on this through the Ankler has been critical also in bolstering a lot of this. And like, we can't thank you enough for your support, even for that first panel at Sundance, being willing to kind of bring in all of the things around the new campaign that we were launching then, but also everything going to CinemaCon and Pingate, which, my gosh, it's the highlight of
Get to that.
our year now.
the
We'll come
my-
next episode. Next episode, we'll cover Pingate. in
that's
detail.
we'll do a documentary retrospective about all this. But no, it's been an honor and a privilege to stand beside you all who are so smart and so committed and with all you do. And everybody, please join us on the front lines here, because this battle has a long way to go and will continue even beyond this merger. And we will be talking to both of you again soon. Ted Hope, thanks for joining us on here. We'll need you on the camera again soon. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.